You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to bring you the inspiration and motivation you need to get started in the outdoors or to keep you moving if you're already there. Now here's your host, Kurt Linville.
Hi friends, thank you for joining the Adventure Sports Podcast today. I have Coach Matthew Dougherty with us, and he is the head coach for the Nordic and also distance canoe racing at a very special place. He's at Paul Smith's College, and I don't know how many of you know what this place is. They have a documentary out about Coach Matt and outdoor cats. That's actually, I believe, the name of the documentary, and it explains so much about it. It's a very special place. It's all about endurance and adventure sports, and we're going to dive into that. I watched the documentary already, and Matt coaches amazing college students who are just killing it in Nordic competition, winning national titles, also competing internationally, and just an amazing opportunity. So anyway, I'm not going to take up time talking about it. When we have the man himself, Matt, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Man, I'm glad to have you. This is cool. I was just saying before I hit record here, I've interviewed a couple of people that kind of headed up the outdoor sports sections at different universities, and it's always been a fantastic conversation because these are people who not only do the thing, but they're just so skilled at helping others discover the outdoor sports, the adventure sports, the endurance sports. And, you know, when you've had a career doing that sort of thing, it kind of puts you in a special place to encourage people in the outdoors, which is what the Adventure Sports Podcast is all about. You know, just for context, let's start with Paul Smith's College. Where is it located? Very unique place.
Yeah, Paul Smith's College is a unique place. We're in the heart of the Adirondack Mountains, which is in New York. The Adirondack Mountain, it's actually a park, and that park could fit all of the national parks of the U.S. inside of it. So
wow.
A huge amount of land, and Paul Smith's College is kind of at the heart of it. We're in the northern part of it, and we sit right on a lake called Lower St. Regis Lake. And you could actually paddle from our campus to New York City if you wanted. It's all connected waterways. And we're 20 minutes from the High Peaks region, which is, there's 46 mountains over 4,000 feet here in the Adirondacks, and we're just really in the heart of this vast wilderness.
Wow, that's a special place. And I'm going to say it this way because I have a Western bias. I apologize in advance, but a wilderness in New York is awesome. To have a place that unique, that's cool. Yeah,
the Adirondacks overall are just one of these incredibly unique places, and the fact that there's this college in the middle of it's truly special.
Well, let's now find out who Matthew is. Matthew Dougherty.
So actually, I think from the earliest ages of my childhood, my parents went to Paul Smith's College in the 70s. They graduated in 77. And then we moved back to New York City where they were both from. And somewhere around fourth grade, I was born, my sister was just born, they decided to leave the city and they moved right back to the Adirondacks, a little town called Saranac Lake. And if you just grow up here, it's ingrained. Like everything is outdoors because you're in the middle of a wilderness. And the neighboring town is Lake Placid, which hosted the 1932 and 1980 Winter Olympics. So it's a place that combines every aspect of outdoor adventure sports with traditional sports into like day-to-day life.
Nice. Well, that's very cool. Now that we know where you are and a little bit about who you are, what have been your favorite outdoor sports over the years, personally?
Oh, man. My favorite one is probably, I used to do adventure racing, and it was really popular in the late 90s, early 2000s. I raced with EMS Sullivan and a couple other teams, and I loved that. Multi-day, you might be riding your bike one day, and the next day you're in an inflatable canoe, you're just switching it back and forth and just going day to day. I really love that kind of racing. That was my favorite kind of sport out there. It still exists. I don't do it as much anymore, but yeah.
Well, and there's a component to it, which is route finding. You have to kind of orienteering. You have to be able to use a map and a compass or you're not going to win the race.
Yeah, you have to generally like teams of 3 or 4 and whoever's on that map and compass. I mean, your whole race depends on them being good at what they do. Thankfully, our team always had good navigators.
I've had the honor of interviewing some some racers, and they have said things to me like, yeah, in a long race, we finally realized if we didn't get 90 minutes of sleep a day, we could no longer read the map.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to get, we call it the sleep monsters. I mean, if you just go too long without sleep, you start to see things and think things that aren't real. Sometimes it's comical. It's rarely comical in the moment, though.
Right. It's always looking back at it, but that's how extreme these events are. And that's,
yeah, they are.
Oh, that's something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You also got into triathloning.
Yeah. I was right out of college. I was in Lake Placid doing an internship, and they have a big Ironman there, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. So I spent a bunch of time as a triathlete, got to compete with Team USA at a World Championships and do a few of the World Cups over in Europe in the early 2000s.
Fun.
Yeah.
Let's ask, I don't know, I'm completely ignorant about this. What about mountain biking in the Adirondacks?
The Adirondacks, because it's the way it was written into the constitution of the state, like there's different land classifications. So it took a long time for mountain biking to get up to speed here in the East. But in the last 20 years, it's really blossomed. So there's a ton of great mountain biking here. Now, I love mountain biking out west. I love going to Moab. I love everything. So this is the East Coast mountain biking. We got some good flow trails, but it's also a good mix of like that gnarly roots, rocks, wet mud. There's a lot of it. But we're lucky. There's a great organization here that's built trails all over the Adirondacks, so you can link every community together via their mountain bike trails. You might hop on the road for a little bit, but each town's got a little section of good mountain bike trails.
That's kind of fun. So you can actually kind of tour from town to town to town if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's obviously some people who always put an adventure together and try and link them all together into one route. So you do all the towns in a day. It generally takes 24 hours. Just keep riding. Yeah, it's a long one.
Well, and we have a lot of that where I am in Colorado as well. And extreme sports, it takes a unique kind of person, I think. But I also think almost everyone benefits from learning what they're made of and becoming fit and connecting with nature and pushing themselves. And from the documentary, I could see that you're a believer in that.
Yeah,
motivating
100%.
Your students, amazing.
Yeah, we do this big event called the Adirondack 90 Miler, and I want everyone to do it because it's pretty rough. It's a 90-mile canoe race over 3 days, and the value people get out of that, though, when they do it is so incredible. I just want everyone to have that experience because you can't not do something like that and learn about yourself and grow. And that's the goal for me for everything is how do we help these guys grow?
Well, in the documentary, there was a little clip where you were talking to your team, your students, after I think it was day 2.
Yeah.
And you said this is the hardest day of the event, but you mentioned the pain cave.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? That's a really good term for it. And I don't know how many of our listeners know what you're talking about when you say the pain cave, but will you explain that to us?
Yeah, I think it exists in a lot of sports. Maybe not all sports, but it exists in a lot of sports. And when you really push yourself to the limit, it's this place you have to go to and just sit in the pain and keep producing power, whether it's watts on a bike or in canoe racing, it's just keeping up the tempo or producing power a different way. And you just go there and you have to kind of sit in that pain. And after a while, you realize it's just pain. I can carry this amount of pain for however much longer you have to. And marathon canoe racing is a great place to experience it because it might be 6 or 8 hour day. So you're just sitting there going the same pace and there's no getting out of it. If you go slower, it's just going to take you longer to get to the same thing. You're going to endure the same thing. So when you get to that place, I think that pain cave is what we describe as that place where you kind of sit in the pain and then hopefully you transcend the pain in a way. You're like, okay, this just hurts. I can make it hurt more, which is learning to go deeper, learning to produce more power. Because it's just pain. It just exists, whether I go fast or slow, how I react to it. And that's generally where we find our greatest growth potential is when we're in those moments.
I've heard really world-class athletes talk about this next point, and I'm not sure if I've really experienced it. But it's when you think you've gone as hard as you're physically capable of going. You think this is 100%, there's nothing left, but somehow you find more.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about just the pain cave here. I'm talking about the sprint at the finish line, right? How does that happen?
I wish I knew exactly what it was, but it's all of these experiences. So for me, with my team, I love them doing the 90 miler because if they get enough of those experiences and they have enough belief in themselves, I know at some point it's going to click. I think in the movie, there's a really great example, and it's not like necessarily clear that's what's happening, but this young man, Griffin Smith, is at the back of a pack in a sprint race, in the classic race. And he looks rough. He looks like he's in a lot of pain. And his teammate crashes out, and he just digs deep, and somehow he shoots to the front of the pack and gets a qualifying spot. And he, in conversations after, talks about, like, I just knew I could endure the pain and just do it. I could just do it. I needed to do it for the team. And he dug deep. And I think it's because of those experiences where you were either deep in the pain cave and just sat with it for a long time and you're like, it's just pain, I can endure it. Or you've experienced it enough that you've risen above it enough times that you know there's something inside, and if you need to push that button or click it over, you can push past it and get to that next level. Doesn't happen often, I'll say that, but when it does, I mean, that's the golden ticket. That's what we're looking for, is how do we get to that level?
For the listeners who've not experienced the pain cave or this 110%, whatever that is, going beyond what you think. It's the superhuman part of these events, really. But it is human. Let me rewind a little bit. There are vast rewards for going there. And people hear a term like pain cave, and they think, why would I sign up for that? Right? Yeah. But what are some of the rewards? What have you experienced? What have your teams experienced? How does that show itself?
I think it's, when we break it all down, we're looking here at these like surface goals of like making U.S. teams and stuff, but what we're really after is true growth, finding out who we are and what our capabilities are. And I think that doesn't happen in the easy parts of life. It only happens in the presence of adversity. At the start of the documentary, they put up that quote. I love that this Arctic explorer, Ben Saunders, says, true growth only happens in the presence of adversity. And that's something I just truly believe. We don't change, grow, or learn about ourselves if we're just sitting in a nice hot tub. It's only when we're in the places that challenge us that we learn and grow and become better at what we do or who we are. And I think we have to find those places. We can't find them a lot. It's got to be a certain amount. If we lived in the pain cave, it would be miserable. But getting there reveals something about us. And I think it also, the easier terms I often use for people, like when they think of the pain cave, it's a cheat code to level up. How do I get to that next level? Well, I got to find out what my limits are, and the pain cave is one of those places you can find that.
Okay, what's the difference? Just, this is a public safety announcement. What's the difference between the pain cave and the injury cycle?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. For sure. We always talk about that on our team and stuff, and it takes a lot of self-regulation. That's knowing what's the good pain and what's the bad pain, and that just, I think it takes a lot of experience there and someone there to help. I see that as my job there, is to come alongside them and to start to talk about what's going on. Like, no, this is an injury, needs rest, and having a good support crew around that. And that's also for us why we say, we don't go to the pain cave often. There's not so many times a year you can visit that place, because it does get to that point of injury and risk of stuff. So go there purposefully and go there infrequently, and then save the other times for when you need them.
As a young man, I was in cross-country track, and I was working really hard to get my distance up, my speed up, and that sort of thing. And I started overtraining, and I didn't know the difference. I would feel the pain, I'd go into the pain cave, and then I would push until I broke my leg. Stress fracture, my fibula. It was a hairline, but that took me out. I mean, that was the end of the racing season for me. And I thought, wow, how do you tell the difference between this really hurts and, I'm hurting myself?
Yeah, that's like a golden ticket thing. If you could bottle that up, you'd probably make a lot of money if you knew that. But I think it's a really good support system around you. And then we are lucky now in this day and age. There's so much technology around us, even just simple stuff like monitoring resting heart rate or HRV starts to give us some great things like, hey, something's going on. And for us here with our program, when we start to see changes there, we have avenues where we start to look at, should we draw some blood and check all of our, levels and see if something's missing. And we start to look at all those opportunities now, which is lucky. I coached college cross country and track for nearly 20 years and started in the early 2000s, and we didn't have that, and a lot of stress fractures and unneeded injuries, I think, just because there wasn't as much availability of information as we have now.
Well, that's one thing that's great about having a coach, right? Someone to walk you through some of those things out of ignorance. I think a lot of people get hurt. One of my sons, mountain bike racing, he became very competitive and did a fantastic job, but he used to go out on solo training rides. And when he would come back into the house, he would smell strongly like ammonia because he was burning his own tissue. He was, and I was like, dude, I think you've gone too far.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a step too far.
Yeah, I think that's where coaches, are invaluable. They're the ones who can be there to help. And they see those things first. Someone from the outside sees it before you realize it's happening. And they're there to help figure out how to get out of that hole when you get to it.
I want to talk about Jefe Branham for just a moment. So Jefe lives in Gunnison. And before we moved to Gunnison, I never met the guy, but he won the Colorado Trail mountain bike race several times. It's a 500-mile race on almost all trails. There are a few places where the trail goes through wilderness areas where you're not allowed to bike, so you have to take a road or another trail to get around the wilderness areas, and then the race continues on. But he's won it several times. This is one of those deals where you don't really take time to sleep. It's pretty much 500 miles go, right? And when I interviewed him, he was just wildly successful at it. And I thought, man, there's something unique about this guy. Well, it turns out when we moved to Gunnison, his wife also helped to coach the mountain bike team that I was coaching. And so one time we're at an event, he's sitting next to me, and I'm like, man, why do you do it? How do you do it? And he had just told me that he had created a route to ride around our area, and it was going to take 72 hours to complete this ride, and he was looking for someone to ride with him, but he wasn't getting many takers for a 72-hour straight ride. And I was like, Jefe, what's going on? Why do you want to ride a bike for 72 hours without rest? And he says, I love the place it takes me. Mm-hmm. It's my thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that I have a great explanation for what that is. But, the types of racing that you've done, you've been there. Can you explain to us an insight into that, the place it takes you?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. But when it goes well and you're in the moment, even though you're probably in the pain cave and stuff, there's this kind of almost flow state that exists. And I think it's most easily equated to just being present. There is nothing but the moment. And I think anyone who's been on a mountain bike, right? If you're on a mountain bike and you're thinking about work and stuff, you're probably going to crash, right? You have to think about the rock. You got to think about the jump ahead of you. You got to think about that. Those things force you to just be there. You're just there. And when you're there and you're present with just yourself, then it's like this kind of transcending earth in a way. You're just in this moment. And that is such a rare and special thing where it's just you and the elements that exist around you. And there's nothing else. And that's pretty unique and really hard to get to. I think it's even harder in this day and age, with everything around us to get to that point. And it goes back to the core tenets in man versus himself, man versus man. It goes back to all these things that I think we're built for that are hard to get to, though.
Wow. In the documentary, I saw your students at the national competition.
Yeah.
And this is Nordic, right? And I want to get into Nordic here and talk about the various events and all that kind of stuff. But I saw them kind of finding out things about themselves they may not have known before.
Yeah.
And pushing themselves in ways that you just don't see every day. And honestly, it was very, very touching. I mean, I was almost getting emotional. I was like, man, these kids. And you, Matt, were the one who took them there. You showed them how to do it, how to dig deep like that. And there's something that they will carry for the rest of their lives. They know that they have that ability to dig deep and to get through things that a lot of people would just cave into.
Yeah.
So how do you get a group of people to understand that and to reach so far beyond themselves, to have those kinds of experiences and that kind of growth?
Yeah, I think some of it is almost super basic. It is sometimes as simple as standing next to them and whispering, "You can do this," over and over and over, to the point where they believe in themselves. And I think the whole world needs that. We all need that at times. Just that, yeah, you can do this. I believe in you, so you can do this. And then just continually providing opportunities for them to test themselves and to keep going to another level. And I mean, once you convince an athlete that they can do something and they believe it, then they're going to surprise you for sure. And they're going to surprise themselves time and time again. And that's the level. It doesn't matter what level of sport you're competing at. That's what you're trying to get to, whether you're on like the modified track team or on a college Nordic ski team. How do I get better from where I am and believe that I can keep moving forward? And I think it is that, and then the community we create in our program around the athletes, that it is not an individual. This is a team. This is, even if you're the slowest skier on the team or the fastest skier, it requires all of us moving in the same direction. And it requires all of us feeling the same things no matter what place we're getting. We are all pushing ourselves to the limits every opportunity we get. And I think another part of it too is we do focus pretty consistently. This is a small window in life where you get this opportunity, this chance to do this. And they don't come often. So you need to, every time you line up, take that, roll the dice and try and find out where your limits are. And then when you find your limits, say, can I go a little bit more? Can I dig a little bit deeper? And I really do think it's as simple as building that community. And then we have this really strong trust relationship. They trust me, I trust them. And when someone says, I believe in you, I think you can do pretty incredible things.
Wow. Yeah, what do they call that? The Peter principle or something? You set the expectation and people tend to want to rise to meet it.
Yeah.
And that's a way to motivate. And I can tell that you set a high bar.
Yeah.
You know, it's a beautiful thing. You mentioned kind of the support of the group. And in the documentary, one of the racers said, we're not really a team, we're a family now, and we have family problems.
Yeah.
But that's part of what it's all about, you know? And can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have this unique setup with our program. They all live in the same house. You don't have to, but most of them end up, it's a house right on the lake. I think it's a travesty for their future lives because they have a lakefront view in college. It's $1 million view, and that's going to be harder to get when they get older. But we do so much together, and we train a 40-week season. So they're training almost year-round, and a lot of that time's together. So
yeah,
the challenges of it are great, and the hardships of it are great. And we say we don't want to avoid the hard things, because if we can go through those hard things like interpersonal relationships and just the overall living together stuff together,
right,
we're much more prepared for life after college, for life in general. So as a family unit, we get annoyed with each other like a family gets annoyed at each other. We get annoyed with dirty dishes, but we say because we're a family, we have to come back to figure out how to solve these problems. And every time we do, we just get to be a stronger unit. And it's always up and down and rocky, but these groups stay together. I mean, they are units for years. I'm watching them, 8-10 years after, and they're still a group, even if they're separated by distance, that's there supporting each other and learning, for lack of better words, how to human together. And I think it's kind of one of the secret sauces here. It adds another layer that allows us to achieve at a higher level.
Well, and I want to mention the secret sauce. Your teams are competing at the highest levels, competing for national titles. And let's talk a little bit about the college there. How many students do you have?
Around 700 students at this college.
700 students. Yeah. Okay, and you're competing against colleges and universities of what sizes?
4, 8, 10, 20,000 students, yeah.
Okay, so you have you have a group of hundreds to draw from. They have a group of tens of thousands to draw from, and you guys are beating them or holding your own. It's a true, honest parity, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got some special sauce, something in the water somehow. How is that happening?
Well, I think there's a lot of unique things. This college is like fully bought into Nordic. We have our own Nordic Center on campus called the VIC, and that's like out the back door of campus, and the college runs it as a Nordic Center. So it's part of kind of the culture here is Nordic skiing, and we have a long history in Nordic skiing. In the 1950s, U.S. championships were here. A lot of people from Paul Smith's through the 50s, 60s, and 70s were on U.S. teams. So there's this kind of like long history. I think that the community at the college and the community of the Adirondacks, there is this really strong kind of support system for what we're doing here. And that is one of the parts of the secret sauce, is a place that is committed to people. And I start with that because I think it takes two important things for athletes to come and develop. A place that offers them space and support. Those are the things I say. Space to come in and say, we don't need you to develop at this rate. We don't need you to score this many points. Just come here and do the work and see what happens. And then the support, the tools you need to do that. That's not just a place to ski, but, when the snow is bad, can we travel? Can we find man-made snow to ski on? All those extra pieces that help an athlete develop. And this place, this college, and then the larger community of the Adirondacks is an exceptionally unique place for that. The athletes can come in and just spend their time doing their work and know that they have the space and support they need, no matter whether it takes 1 year or 4 years to develop into the level they want to. And that, I think, it takes pressure off. It also just allows people to know, like, this is your journey, not our journey, which is a really important part of it. And I think that's a really big part of the secret.
Let's dive into Nordic skiing in particular. Because when you say skiing, you're thinking primarily Nordic, I think. And most people, when they say skiing, they're thinking primarily alpine.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's a difference. What is Nordic? I mean, people probably say it's cross country.
Yeah.
But there's so much more than that.
Yeah.
So what is Nordic skiing?
Yeah, so Nordic skiing, most people around, and especially in North America, would think of it as cross-country skiing. It's a pretty big umbrella. So it encompasses several sports. So under Nordic, I would throw biathlon, although biathlon might want to say they're their own umbrella. So that's the sport where people ski and then shoot targets. Really popular sport, one of the biggest sports in Europe. Then there's ski jumping, Nordic combined, which is an event where you ski and ski jump. And based on your jumping, you either get a time differential or that kind of a thing. And then there's Nordic skiing, which in the U.S. we've had some, I think pretty good traction in the last few years with like Jesse Diggins winning Olympic medals. So more people are familiar with that. But that has a full array of events in it, from short races called sprints all the way up through 20 and 50 kilometer long races.
Nice.
And then classic and skate skiing. So there's different styles of skiing within the sport.
Okay, so you mentioned ski jumping. We're talking about the big ski jumps.
Yeah. Yeah.
the flying human ski jumps. That's the way I think of it. That combined with cross country. I don't want to abuse the term, but that's the style, right? Versus skate skiing. Will you build the contrast between those two so people know what we're talking about?
Yeah, so that one, I mean, that's one of the more unique sports overall, like Nordic Combined, which is under the umbrella of like ski jumping and stuff. And I think it's one of the oldest Olympic sports in the Winter Olympics. I have to look at it. But basically, you have specialists who ski jump, but they don't ski. These people do both. And so you would go off the jump, and based on your distance and your competitor's distance, you go out and ski race in the afternoon. And you're going to, if you're the first person, get a head start by a certain number of seconds based on how far ahead of the next person you are. And then the first person across the line wins the event for combined. That's the real basic Nordic combined event that exists.
That's fun. I'm trying to get a picture in my own mind of what these events look like when you're actually there. Watching the Olympics to see the biathlon, that's super cool, but you only see someone like, they're fish boning up a steep slope, and then they pull out a rifle and try to hit a target, and then they're off again. And that's really the only thing you get. But what's it like to participate in that, to put in the effort that's required, and then when your heart's beating at 200 beats per minute, being able to hold a rifle still enough? I mean, what? That's amazing.
It's fascinatingly amazing. And we have had a number of really great biathletes and still do on campus. So one of our skiers this year, Rowan Tangway, was on the U.S. junior team for world championships. And to watch them day in, day out, and I coach them, they come in, heart rate's 170, lay down on the mat, and then fire off 5 bullets at a target smaller than a silver dollar 50 meters downrange is pretty incredible. And to watch them hit them time and time again, it's miraculous. There's a lot of physiology behind it that makes it more possible than we think, but it takes a tremendous amount of practice and experience to get to that point where you can control your heart rate and breathing.
Knowing how to fire between heartbeats or something. I mean,
it's all of those things are a factor in biathlon. If your heart is beating fast and your chest is too in contact with the mat, then your rifle is going to move more. So it's just your position and your breathing, how you hold your breath, where you shoot at in your breath. Did I shoot too late? I'm going to miss low. Did I shoot too early? It's high. And they do it really fast too. 20 seconds, on the mat, 23 seconds. They're just in and out very fast to hit 5 targets. Yeah.
So these are very, very unique events. I want to bring up one other event, which people would say is not Nordic, but it's a first cousin. In the Olympics for the first time this year was skimo. Ski mountaineering. What did you think of that?
I thought it was fascinating. Last year, 7 of our athletes were at the World University Games in Torino, Italy, and we were able to watch the first skimo competition at World University Games in Torino, and we went in person. And in person, it's fascinating. I love it because I love backcountry skiing, and it's just a way to make backcountry skiing a little fun, more exposed, and make it a race. It's fascinating, and it's also really interesting to watch because, some people fly up the hill and then some people fly down the hill, and it's almost, there's a middle ground. You could be a great climber and do well at it. You could be a great descender and do well at it. I've seen both. It was really fun to watch in the Olympics this year. And I have young kids, 3 under the age of 12, and that was their favorite event this year, Olympics. So.
I really enjoyed it too because AT skiing is just one of my favorite things in the world. Of course, I don't race. My transitions take minutes, not seconds, and that sort of thing. The transitions are amazing too. I was just blown away how fast they were. That was something else.
We were doing laps right after the Olympics on our local, we have a T-bar here, and we're just doing some backcountry laps with my kids on AT skis and a couple of my skiers, and I was like, they were like, how come you can't take them off that fast? I said, this is a great question. I have no idea. Just jump up in the air and pull them off, and they're gone. Take my ski boots off. I take my time getting mine off.
Yeah. Well, it's an amazing related sport to Nordic. I would like to see the Nordic sports grow more because I think that there's a quality to them that you don't get out of alpine skiing. And I'll let you take a swing at this one. People come to the Gunnison Valley because they're going to Crested Butte to alpine ski. And on their way up to the mountain, they see Nordic skiers. And we have groomed trails in the city park. We have groomed trails at the golf course. We even have groomed trails on the mountain bike trails in Hartman's. And so all free trails, just come and ski all you want on the Nordic skis. During the peak of the season, we probably have close to 50 miles of groomed Nordic skiing here, and no one even knows it. It's like, well, a few people use that, but they're on their way to the mountain, right? What's the difference?
I think it's the exposure is the thing that needs more for more people here. So our little Nordic center here, the Paul Smith College Vic, I shouldn't say little, it does have 45 kilometers of trails.
Nice.
And groomed really well. One of the things that we worked on the last few years is just partnering with local hotels. As your people come in to stay here and visit the Adirondacks, we know that they're going to go to Whiteface to downhill ski, but offer them this. So we built partnerships and say, they come out to the Vic, we'll give them a lesson, give them rental and a lesson at this, discounted rate and get people on them. And most of the time what we hear is that they never had the opportunity because they weren't didn't know where it was. They had no exposure to it, and that's all it took. And now I can think of these families I see that have come back 3 or 4 winters now with their families, and their first time skiing was just someone reaching out and being like, this is something else you can do. And I think in Nordic skiing, we've got to find a way to do more of that, because it is, alpine skiing is pretty obvious. You drive past the mountain, you see it, you have had exposure to it even if you haven't done it before. And Nordic skiing isn't as much that way. So if I had $1 billion, I always dream I would just create opportunities, free opportunities. We just drive people in buses, say you're going to stay here and we're going to teach you to cross-country ski. I just know that a percentage of the people are going to love it and keep coming back to it for life.
I love both, alpine and Nordic. I really do. But for me, they're almost completely different sports. I feel like they shouldn't both be called skiing.
Yeah, they are totally different events. They are, granted, both on skis, but it's hard. And I think that's part of it in the U.S. too. Though. If we talk about skiing, everyone obviously thinks alpine. We do need a different name for what we do on Nordic skis.
Maybe lean into Nordic as the terminology, but people just don't, I think, know what Nordic means, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just culturally different. Like, you go to Europe, everybody knows, you know.
Right.
You go into the mountains in Italy and you watch on the weekend, everyone drives up out of the cities to the little villas, and they go both to the alpine and then they cross-country ski. But we don't have as much of that background here in the United States.
Well, how is Nordic skiing, I'm going to say, beneficial, good for you, in a way that maybe alpine skiing wouldn't be, so people understand the contrast?
Yeah. I mean, the physiology of skiing is pretty phenomenal. So I grew up as a runner, an elite runner and stuff, and you can only go so far before you really break down and injure yourself. Running has its limits. And skiing really doesn't have that. It doesn't have the impact of like a running. And it also involves your entire body. So even going out for a casual ski is like a full body workout. And I think it's also amazing because you're out. Every Nordic center is pretty much in nature. You're connected to nature. So in my opinion, you're rejuvenating your soul and your spirit in those moments as you're connected to nature skiing. So it gets you a little of everything, and it gets you that piece of calm, sense of peace at the end of the ski. And you've just gotten this like bonus of like a great workout without going to the gym. It's just phenomenal for you.
Well, one thing that I think is so cool about it is it's one of the sports where you can do in a lot of places where there is no ski hill. You don't need the ski hill, right? You're self-propelled. You are on skis. It's a different feel. Alpine skiing is more about turns.
Yeah.
Right? It's going fast and turning.
Yeah.
And Nordic skiing almost feels like a walk or a run, but you're still gliding across the snow. And turning's a completely different animal.
It is completely different.
So how do you turn on Nordic skis to be effective?
I'd say like it's really, you know, there's so many different levels of skiers in the Nordic skiing world. You know, at our level, we do stuff called the step turn, and we're stepping around a turn and pushing on our outside skis all the way through. Just a lot of people mimic their alpine turns. They're just going to try and carve a turn using their skis. And I think it depends on the speed you're going, really, that you do that. We have to use a little of both depending on the venue we're at for that. The more you do it, the better you get at it. But it is just like taking little steps around the turn.
I think that there are some people who have decided alpine skiing's not for them. Too fast, a little too crazy. It's just not my thing. But I would argue they should try Nordic. Yeah. Because they might find a love there.
For sure. And I love skiing at our venue and seeing like literally 70-year-old women and packs out on the trail skiing together. They're there doing skiing at their level, and you know, I have kids on the U.S. biathlon team out there skiing. There's a place for everyone. There's a type of ski for everyone. There's trails for everyone that you can make work. So it's a sport that, you know, anyone can do. My wife, we moved here from, we were in Virginia coaching when we moved to the Adirondacks, and she's from Detroit, so she didn't have as much experience cross-country skiing. She picked it up right away and like got into it. And you think someone from the Midwest who didn't grow up skiing, and you know, she found a place in it. So it really does have value for everyone. I think most people, and once you get into it, it's hard not to love it. You want to keep doing it again and again.
Yeah, well, it also made a way for us to go backpacking in the wintertime in the Colorado Rockies. So, you know, it opens up things to you, you know.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk just a little bit more. I want to talk about Paul Smith's college, and I also want to talk about this documentary that you put together. First of all, I've said a couple of times you're competing at the national level. What kind of results are you getting?
Yeah, so our program's competing at the USCSA level, and regularly, every year we're on the podium at nationals, and we're winning national championships pretty regularly. So this year, 2026, our men's team won the USCSA national championship.
Nice.
Our women were national runners-up, and over the last 5 years, I don't think we've finished worse than third in the overall points at nationals, and we've won 3 national championships in that time frame. And then we're also competing to get spots on U.S. teams. So whether it's U.S. Biathlon or USA Nordic, which is the Nordic combined end, we're having athletes at our level train and compete to get onto the U.S. teams to make it to Europe to compete for whether a World Championship, IBU Cups, and all of that. And we're seeing pretty consistently good results. I think they're great results because we're such a small school, but I would just count it up a couple weeks ago. So over the last 6 years, we have had 15 of our athletes represent the U.S. at various levels for biathlon, Nordic combined, and Nordic skiing.
Nice. That's amazing. And now the documentary kind of shows what it's like day to day to be on the team, working with you, and to be a part of the magic that you've got going there. When was the documentary filmed?
So I guess it would have been finished, what would have been 3 nationals ago. So 2 years ago it finished.
Okay.
Yeah. And they followed us. They really started, I think, a year and a half before that. So 2022, I think, is around when they started. And they were with us for about a year and a half. Just came up various trips and
Who is the they? Let's give credit where credit's.
Yeah, credit where credit's due. Adrenaline Films was the main part for doing all the videography, and then Bob Jury was the documentarian. And they were the team that came up and visited us, would spend weeks with us at a time. I don't know, a dozen, maybe 20 different times we saw them. They would just come up, and it was great. They really became part of our team too over the time. So Mike Murray is the head cinematographer for Adrenaline Films, and he was here in person with his crew getting all the shots. And then Bob was, the person kind of telling them what they want to get. Like, we got to make sure this is what's happening the next day. Let's go there and film them like that. So it was incredible.
Well, I watched the documentary before our interview here, and I didn't know what to expect at first. I thought, documentary, okay, and it's about cross-country skiing. Okay, how do they get this to be good? And it's really good. It's really, really fun. It was moving. It was inspirational, and I think it did a great job of showcasing some of the magic that you have going on there. And I would recommend people to watch it. I mean, it's phenomenal. Again, say the name for us and where people can find it.
Yeah. So it's Coach Matt and the Outdoor Cats. It's on Apple TV. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on YouTube, Hulu. It's just about everywhere right now that you can find it streaming.
Nice. Matt, I'd like to ask this. How does it feel to be the coach who gets to be a part of a program like this, who gets to... And don't be humble about it. You deserve a lot of credit. You're making winners. How does that feel?
It's incredibly rewarding. I've spent my entire professional life as a coach, which probably wasn't the route I expected, but this is where I've ended up. So I think all coaches are trying to build towards this, and after 25 years of coaching, to get to this point where all the pieces are there and you're finding the right athletes and finding success is incredibly rewarding. It's super humbling for me too, because I still feel like I'm just a little coach who has a lot to learn out here and a lot more to go before I really know what I'm doing per se. But yeah, and to have a documentary about it is rewarding when you can see your life's work is actually meaningful and that what you're doing is achieving the goals that you've set out to do, which is just, trying to affect people's lives in a positive way.
How much of that do you think is relational?
I think it's 100% relational. I I know this for me, I was asked years and years ago, like, oh, you should, I had great success coaching like marathoners. You should do a digital, or you should coach people online. I kind of dabbled in it a little bit with a friend who had a big coaching platform. And I said, yeah, this doesn't really work for me. And at the time, I didn't really understand why. But now as I'm older, I know I need to be face to face with people, and I need to be able to build that relationship every day, so that when something's happening, I think there's a point in a movie, one of our athletes is just struggling one day, and I know what's going on. I know that person so well. I can just lean over on the course and say, what they need to hear, because we're in partnership with each other, and we have built that partnership in a meaningful way. And that takes, having relationships and being there in person and actually spending the time to build those bridges.
What does it feel like personally to get to know these students on that level, to become family, literally family, and then a quarter of them graduate and leave every year? They're just gone. Yeah.
It's the most rewarding thing I can do in my life, and also when they leave, it's the most heartbreaking thing. When they graduate, it's the worst week of the year by far. I don't like it. Wish they could all stay. I'm glad that they leave. It wouldn't be great if they stayed. I mean, doctors stick around for 8-10 years, but these guys need to get their degrees and move on. I am super thankful, though, that they stay in your life throughout. Like, I get texts from them. I get even athletes I coached, 15, 20 years ago. I think when you build a relationship this way, they're still part of your life, even if they've moved off to California and live there. You're going to be hearing from them and part of their important moments in life throughout. So, but it's the best work I think I could ever do in my life, is working with these people and building a relationship for 4 years, and then the hardest work when they leave.
Absolutely. I'm going to share something I've never shared on the show before, because in a strange way it relates, and I would just like to hear your perspective. I went to Tahlequah High School in Oklahoma, and we had a world-class choir that I was blessed to be a part of. Marjorie Malone was an amazing teacher and director, and she took us to a level that a bunch of redneck kids from a small town in northeastern Oklahoma couldn't even understand. We won national contests consistently, first place, over and over and over again. We sang on the stage of the Grand Ole Opera. We traveled around and just, she was a magnificent choral director. My senior year, she said, I hate to tell you this, but most of you, probably all of you, will never experience this level of music again. Mm-hmm. I didn't believe her. Because I excuse me, I didn't believe her, because I thought, we're just high school kids. Are you kidding me? There's so much out there. The whole world is out there. She was absolutely right. Yeah. It was such a unique, special experience. And that's what your work with these college students feels like to me. I get that same vibe. I get that we've got something so special here that you may never experience it again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I say that to the athletes. I think this year at our national championships, I can remember the last day our men's team was in the lead, and this is it for a lot of you, and this is the last time to experience, the experience of challenging yourself at this level, but also being with a group like this. And, I think my charge to them was to soak it in, to find their limits, but then also to remember that I feel like it's a little bit of their job to take that and try and recreate it when they leave here, whatever they're doing. Create that community, create those people that you're driving towards something so that they can experience it too.
What a beautiful thing to have had experienced it, because then you know it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it can apply to so many different facets of life. And I want to say thank you to you, even though I've never been coached by you. I want to say thank you to you because of the work that you're doing to change lives for the better. And you can see it in the film. You can see it in your amazing record, in your competitions. And you can see it in your sincerity. And we need more people like you, Matt, in this world. And thank you for what you're doing.
I appreciate that. And I would say one thing, it's for everyone. The documentary does a great job, but also there are people on that team who never skied before they came to college.
Wow.
And maybe they don't win a national championship, but this year I watched a young man who came from Georgia, learned to ski here, and he scored for us in a race. And that was just one race that he scored for us. But that was a life-changing moment. And his accomplishment is the same as, the guys winning national championships. And that constantly reminds me that it's for everyone. It's not for just the elite athletes. It's for every one of us to find whatever we can do to pursue like that.
I love it. Well, we're running low on time, but can you give us an anecdote, a story that you think kind of encapsulates some of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, my anecdote is the people who've come here and skied here who didn't think or had never been told they were capable of something. And I have a number of people on the team I can think of who've come here, and we just provided them the space, the support, and the belief, and we told them they're good enough, you can keep doing it, and they kept after it, and then they achieved wildly beyond anything they can imagine. The documentary shows Griffin Smith charging into, at a moment where his teammate crashed, and he realized now he's the scorer, and he's got to pick up that torch and carry it.
Yeah.
And that's a person who, became that person in college because he was surrounded by all these people. And those are the things that are possible when we surround ourselves with people who believe.
Just believe.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I want to lean into the community of it just a little bit. I think that there are a lot of people that do adventure sports solo. I'm one of them quite often.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
But the community matters too. I think it's important to find your people and to do the thing that you love together. I think you're an expert at that, obviously. Any advice for people who are like, yeah, I'd really like to do that, I don't know how?
Yeah, just step into opportunities. That's the biggest thing I think learned in my 25 years of coaching, and I tell my athletes, there's opportunities everywhere, just start stepping into them, take a chance, which is the uncomfortable thing to do, but whatever it is, I think here in the Adirondacks, I think it's, the community group runs. If you want to be in a community, just start showing up at that. Or if it's the mini tries in Lake Placid, just start showing up at these places, and you'll start to find those opportunities, and some of them will click for you, and you'll find your place.
That's excellent advice. Thank you very much for your time, Matt. The documentary movie is Coach Matt and the Outdoor Cats. And cats, by the way, is Bobcats.
Yeah, we are the Bobcats.
When I first started looking it up, I was like, well, isn't that a Broadway musical? Right.
Yeah.
The Bobcats, but it's has the hyphen cats. So Coach Matt and the Outdoor Cats. The school is Paul Smith's College. What a great thing you've got going on. Thank you for introducing us to it and for your time today.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care, man.
All right, you too.
Yeah, for everyone out there, don't forget to get out there and have some fun.